So everybody knows I put a Harley wheel on my Honda VTX 1300. Today I'm going to explain in detail what I used and what I copied and why it's safe, and I have over 2,000 miles on my bike, so let's check it out. So this is my Honda VTX 1300 with a Harley wheel on it. And the way I did it, a lot of people got angry and said that I would end up dying, the bearings would lock up, and all kinds of stuff, right? And I got just over 2,000 miles on this. I went on a 5-hour ride yesterday. I'm not a problem out of this wheel because basically it's stock. I don't understand what people are trying to get at. I had one company reach out to me and say, you know, that's a really good idea. But what I did, maybe they can machine inner sleeves and outer bushings to make this swap a little bit more simple. Because you can already buy the rotor spacer, right? But I'm going to explain to you what I did in detail and show you the stock wheel is the same setup. So here we have the stock wheel off the VTX. Is I just copied what was in this wheel and I put it in the Harley wheel. I put the bearings in the Harley wheel. I put the dust seal on the Harley wheel, and I made an inner sleeve for the Harley wheel. It's just like this. The only thing I had to do different for my application was make the inner sleeve a little bit longer. I did do a wheel that the inner sleeve out of the stock wheel actually fit. But I'm just going to tear this apart and show you exactly what I'm talking about so you get an understanding why this is safe. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull this dust seal out. Then we're going to go ahead and pop this bearing out right here. So I'm going to pop this out real quick and show you what's inside. Alright, so you see me took the outer seal off, dust seal. I went ahead and drove the bearing out. And of course you're going to have a bearing on the other side, but here's the important part. This right here. This is the inner sleeve. I don't know the term for it, but this is what I made. I ended up having the ends of it machined. If you're real good with a cutoff saw, you can get it perfectly straight, but I had mine machined on the end. This wasn't long enough to fit in the Harley wheel. It was lacking by a couple inches. So I got a little bit thicker DOM tubing. It's thicker than this, and it actually weighs more. And I made it to fit the Harley wheel. Now when you put this in, as you can see, it fits the inside of the VTX bearings. The VTX bearings is what we put in the Harley wheel. I don't understand what the big deal is making your own sleeve, doing the proper measurements, and then making sure this rides on there. Because this is what squeezes your bearings together. So the only thing I had to do to get this to fit the Harley wheel is I used, there's a whole video on it, go back and watch it, but I'm just going to break it down. I used the same bearings that the VTX uses. I used the dust seals that the VTX uses. You can see them in there. And this sleeve almost fit. Now, it fit in the other Harley wheel that I had. It fit in there perfectly, actually, just for mock-up. The VTX sleeve, the inner sleeve fit. I was just lacking, I don't know, about that much. And all this is a tube to set on the inner race of that bearing, and then the other bearing goes on the other side, which is on the other side of this wheel. And when you tighten it down, it smashes it all together. It keeps the bearings from going back and forth and deflecting and all that stuff. And this rides on the inner race. That's the same thing that I made for this wheel. It's identical to this that come out of the stock wheel. I copied what was in the stock wheel, transferred everything from the VTX wheel to this wheel, but I just made my own inner sleeve. Now, like I said, I did have mine, in the video I said I'm going to grind it down, but I did have mine machined on the end, and I took the proper measurements. You have to have the proper measurements. As you can see, this just snugly fits right there, and the bearing presses against it lightly. That's the measurements that you'll have to do, which is simple if you know how to do math, right? So basically that's all I did. And there's nothing wrong with it, because if the stock wheel has this setup, what's wrong with this wheel? Nothing. I've had people tell me that this wheel is going to start wobbling wobbling, and the bearings are going to deflect, and the bearings are going to lock up, throw me off the bike. There's no way that it can do that, because I copied what was in the stock wheel and put it in the Harley wheel. Basically, all I did was bypass the bushings that you need, the shims and all that stuff. Go back and watch the video. I'll show you how to do it. But basically, I took how the stock wheel was and I made it for the Harley wheel. And everybody knows you can run VTX bearings in a Harley wheel. It's just the inner sleeve that people have a problem with, and the bushings on the outside to center the wheel. Now, the bushings on the outside is a different story. You can get those made. My stock ones fit, and it centered my wheel up perfectly. But when it comes to the inner sleeve, like I just talked about, you can make it yourself. I don't see what the big deal is. I don't have any wobbles or anything. I got almost over 2,000 miles on this wheel. It's doing perfectly fine. If I replicated what was in the stock wheel and put it in the aftermarket wheel, which is just a Harley wheel, aftermarket wheel, I don't see the issue. There's no way that the bearings can deflect, wobble, and stuff like that, because from the factory, it's the same setup that I put in the Harley wheel. I just made this swap a little bit more simple for the backyard guys. Yeah, I could have kept the 1-inch bearings in the Harley wheel and ordered the bushings that go in. And then I'd have to take measurements to figure out what these would be and all that. I just made it super simple. And like I said, I just copied what was in the Honda wheel. The Honda wheel consists of an inner sleeve, a bearing on that side, a dust cover. This sleeve goes in there. This presses up tight against it and keeps it center, causes the bearings to tighten up and not wobble and deflect and all that good stuff, keeps it rolling smooth. And you put your dust seal on the outer part. Now, if you go back and watch my video, it's the same thing that I did with the Harley wheel. There's no issues, there's no problems. If you're real worried about the edge, if you can't get it cut smooth, you can do what I did and just have the ends of it machined where they're flat. Somebody will do that for you. Probably only takes a couple seconds. You can get it done for like $20 at your local metal shop. But this is the inner sleeve on the Honda VTX 1300. Mine's definitely way thicker than this, and if this isn't going to crush, nothing will. The piping that I ended up using was for a Razor bumper that was built, and it's made to like run into things, do off-road stuff. So people were telling me the inner sleeve is going to crush and bevel out and all that stuff. You're not going to crush this inner sleeve, especially the one I used. That's why there's torque specs and everything else. So the way I did it, it works just like the stock wheel. As you can see, I got the same diameter that fits in the inner race. I don't know how much clearer I can be on the Harley wheel, but I basically transferred everything that was in the Honda wheel to the Harley wheel, and then went off this sleeve and made my own, and that's how I have a Harley wheel on my Honda VTX.